Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is John Sallaway. He's the CEO of a company called vSpatial. The website is vspatial.com, like the letter V. We're going to be talking about virtual reality applications. So, John, how are you?
I'm doing well, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I always ask the toughest questions first is my joke that I use over and over. But tell me about vSpatial. What's the premise of the company?
Let me tell you about our background. I think that gives you an insight into where we're headed and what we're working on. We're a group of 16 AR and VR, telecommunications, networking, and cloud experts. And we have in our company everyone from, newly out of college all the way to been in the workforce for 40 years. And along the way, we've been in small companies, we've been in large companies and mid-sized. We've worked at home, we've worked at big corporations. And so, we've seen a lot of working styles, and we are passionate about the future of work and specifically the role that virtual reality is going to play in the future of work. And so that's vSpatial, the company. And then vSpatial, our app, is a virtual environment where you can connect with your data and your coworkers in a way that is more meaningful than today's PC, phone, tablet, and laptop experiences.
Huh. All right, well, maybe say more about that. What do you think is a better way of connecting with all this stuff versus staring into your phone and clicking buttons?
Sure. So I think the word is immersion. If you think about Minority Report, and you think about Iron Man, and you think those images in your head of them moving their information around with their hands, putting it in the place that they wanted to. Sometimes they're interacting with three-dimensional data, and they're doing all that while they're talking to people on the other end. And that's what we're doing at vSpatial. We're connecting you to your coworkers and your data in a way that's not possible with a two-dimensional screen. You can move it around with your hands. You can interact with three-dimensional data, which you can't do with a two-dimensional screen. So it's the word is immersion, and it's a little bit difficult to describe. You kind of have to experience it, but it is there's a real sense of presence with your people and your data.
So, what's an example, whether it's out there in the real world or if it's something you guys are working on internally? What's an example that sticks out at you where you're like, the users or you were like, wow, this is so much better?
Yeah. So one example, it's a great question. We have end of day meetings every single day. And so in our application, the way it looks is you're in a virtual environment. Every application that's open on your laptop occupies its own screen or virtual monitor in front of you, and they kind of surround you in like a semicircle or circle. So that's your data. Then you have your coworkers. There's a profile picture of each person that's in the meeting, and they appear kind of above your data. And so in our end of day meetings, I ask, so and so, what did you work on today? And I'm able to walk right up to them, and they can share their applications by just a click of a button, and I can pull that down into my carousel of applications, and I can see what they're talking about. I can see what they worked on that day, and it's like I'm standing right next to them, talking to them while they point and show me what they worked on that day. And so you really feel like you're there with them. We work remotely for the most part. We do have an office in Provo, Utah, but a lot of us work remotely. And whether we're in Provo or we're at our home office, we feel like we're together. We can share multiple applications at the same time. I can share two, another person can share two or three, another person can share three or four. And so you're able to I'm able to listen to 2 or 3 people make a report while I look at 2 or 3 different applications from each of them that they've shared. And so it's an improvement. If you've been in video conferences with legacy solutions, you hear, "Can you stop sharing so I can share?" And so the host of the meeting has to stop sharing, and then you wait 10 seconds, and another person asks, "Can you see it yet?" And that's not how we That's not how we collaborate in real life, right? And so in our application and in virtual reality, and augmented reality, you can you don't have to deal with that problem. You can collaborate much more closely to the way you do in real life.
Okay, so I see how it helps with the end of the day meetings. What about when someone's going about their day and doing their own workflow, and they I would guess right now the way computers are and phones are, there's a lot of distraction, a lot of stuff popping up, and I mean, how do you implement this without making that worse? How do you let the person kind of control their experience where they're only looking at things they want to look at and they're not having other stuff pop up or distract them?
Sure. It's a really interesting question. So, we do have the choice, both at vSpatial and just in general, as we look at the future of these applications, the future of VR and AR and spatial computing, is how much do we integrate the old sort of world, like our phones and pop-up messages and things like that, into AR and VR. And I don't have a great answer on that. I do know that when you're in virtual reality, especially, there's a feeling of immersion, and it is kind of nice. It's kind of nice not to be distracted sometimes by what's going on in the outside world. And so I think that's one of the profound and useful differences between VR and AR. Maybe there's times when you do need to be in touch with the outside world. You want to see what's popping up on your phone, and so you may want to be in AR. Maybe there's other times when you don't. You want to be focused. You want to be solely engaged in this one task or in this one meeting, and maybe that's a VR meeting. And then there's obviously the question of, well, at what point will the phone integrate with both of those solutions, and then they'll pop up in front of your eyes? I don't know. That's a choice we have to make, and the users are going to have to tell us what they want on that.
Well, do you find that people are more engaged, it sounds like, in VR experiences versus AR experiences? AR, you're still in your own world, and now there's extra stuff overlaid on top of what you're looking at. But VR, you could strip out as much as you want and only have certain things appear at your command, let's say. So have you found one way is better than another?
I definitely don't think that one way is better than the other. There's if to the extent that people try to answer that question, I think it's kind of a false premise, because I think both have really powerful use cases. It's natural to think, which one is going to be better, but I just think both of them are going to be extremely powerful. They're both based on, loosely, a concept of immersive experience and spatial computing. And I just think you're going to need to choose. It'll be great if you have the option to choose in what way do I want to experience this? Do I want this to be a virtual reality experience, or do I want this to be an augmented reality or mixed reality experience? And I think there's plenty of very compelling use cases for all of that.
Well, how far have you taken this? I mean, do you have production ready in use experiences for certain types of work, or
Absolutely.
What stage are you at with all those products?
So right now we're available in the Oculus Store and the Steam Store. We support the Oculus Rift and the Windows MR and headsets and the Vive. And so we have daily active users. We have reason to be encouraged with the number of people that are downloading our application. So we have real use. We also have some enterprises that are trial customers for us, and they're looking at, but they're using our app with an eye towards having board meetings or company-wide meetings in virtual reality. Some of them have indicated, we have these company-wide meetings, and we're pretty used to the money that we spend on airfare and hotels. And while we're not a huge fan of that, we've just kind of gotten used to it. But what we really detest is the time that we lose having you pick the number, 20, 30, 50 people in an airplane for what amounts to the company for, collectively 45 days or something like that when you add up all that time. And they said, so the idea of being able to connect a little bit more powerfully than we can with a video conference is very compelling to them. So that's what the application is being used for now is productivity and collaboration.
Well, what kind of feedback are you getting from users? How does it change their experience and their workflow? And, you get any surprises from it? That you had to revise things or you're on the right track? What kind of feedback are you getting?
There's we've had remarkably positive feedback. Of course, I think every company in our stage, a startup company that's been around for 2.5 years or so, wishes they had more feedback, but the feedback so far has been really good, that they are able to focus, that the people, I talked about those images of Tony Stark or the movie Minority Report, and I think people have been sort of looking forward to a way to have that experience, and they've been looking for it, and they're finding it now in our application. They're having it's making their work a little bit more delightful. They can get in and have 10 monitors open at the same time when, of course, they couldn't afford or make 10 actual monitors work, right? And so the feedback is really positive. And I'd say the themes of the feedback are the flexibility to have multiple applications open more than you can with maybe 1 or 2 monitors. And the other feedback has been about immersion and being able to be connected and feel like you're really experiencing your content rather than just kind of seeing it on a 2-dimensional screen.
Well, again, any specifics, how it's changed someone's workflow or, maybe they feel more productive, but, what does that mean? Like, what do you think are maybe the top or most useful 1 or 2 items about your product? What are people telling you that really is like sticking in your mind? You're like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, the biggest one is probably productivity and accuracy. We're more accurate when I think it was 30% more accurate and 10% more productive. I might have those numbers reversed when we have multiple monitors. And so being able to put 3 or 4 or 5 monitors in front of you and be able to see that information at the same time, that so far has been the feedback we've got, that this is actually making me better. It's not just a cool thing and it's fun, but this is making me more productive. And so that's the biggest thing. And then within our company, the experience that we're having is just that, again, that connection, the ability to have a little bit more meaningful communication with each other when we're separated by distance.
Is size a really important factor? Because if you're going to have like right now we'll have Windows open on our computer, let's say. But if you're using a phone, you're really running out of space. If you want to have 3 to 5 screens open or monitors open, either you physically have them and you're sitting there in like this command center type thing, or I guess you'd project them, or I don't know what you do. Like, so how do you physically accommodate? Maybe that's why you need VR, so you can have as much space as you want. I don't know. Like, what have you found as the best solution?
Yeah, well, that's what we think you need VR for. So you think about the modern workstation, think about the modern worker, right? We the 50% of the workforce right now is millennials, and that's growing. It'll be 75% in 2030. They want a couple things. They want to be able to work remotely and flexibly, right? But we've also all become accustomed to having our laptop connected to at least one external monitor, maybe more. And so when we also want to be able to connect with each other, millennials, especially Gen X as well, we want to feel like we're connected to a team. We want to work on something bigger than just ourselves. And so to some extent, these things are in opposition to one another. I want to be remote. I want to be flexible, but I also want a lot of monitors, and I also want to feel connected to people. And if you think about what VR and AR can do, it can bridge those gaps, that opposition. You can be anywhere in the world and have as many monitors as you want. You could be in the airport, you could be at your family cabin, you could be anywhere and have all the monitors you need. And you can also feel genuinely connected to people. And so I think that's the true magic of VR, is being able to give this younger generation, of which I'm a part, the ability to work the way they prefer, and the way they should be able to work, from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I guess like my ideal is, I don't like carrying around big computers with me or any of that stuff. So my ideal would be to like have, let's say, my smartphone and like a little slim pair of VR goggles, and then wherever I am, I could slip on the goggles and my phone would be powerful enough to interface with the VR, and I could have screens all over the place and have whatever I want, but it doesn't take up room, and I can do it at Starbucks or I can do it wherever I want. That's probably my ideal.
That's exactly right. And that's what's happening with vSpatial as we speak. You hit on, your phone's powerful enough to power your goggles, but there's standalone headsets that are out and that are coming out that are they don't even need to be connected to a cell phone. You look at the Oculus Go, it's $199. It doesn't need to be connected to a phone, and it's a really good experience. So when you talk about being able to connect with that from anywhere in the world, be able to connect with your data and your people, it's a really powerful experience.
So where are we at like today? Let's say like, I'm listening to this podcast right now and I'm like super motivated. I'm going out and I'm going to do this. So, I'm going to obviously want to use vSpatial's program. What's like a setup I need to get, and what will I be able to do currently with where you guys are at right now?
Well, right now you're going to need a pretty powerful gaming PC, and you're going to need a tethered headset. And so what we're finding right now is most of our users are people who already had that equipment or who are VR enthusiasts or gamers. But very soon, you're going to start to be able to use just the $199 headset. And I think that's going to be a real turning point. That's not just for us. That's for tons of us in the VR and AR world. We're obviously waiting for the price point for these head-mounted devices to be more tolerable for the non-enthusiast, just sort of the average everyday consumer or business, right? So today, the price point to get in is a little high. But very soon, we expect, the Oculus Go is already out, and there are other, the Vive Pro, the Vive Focus. We expect the Oculus Santa Cruz to come out pretty soon. And these are devices that are going to have a much lower price point, and they do not need a computer or a cell phone. They're completely standalone. So, and then we're really excited, obviously, about the Magic Leap headset, and the HoloLens is looking like they're going to come out with something new pretty soon. So those are the AR headsets are a little bit further behind price-wise and just adoption-wise, but those are going to be very powerful too.
But what can I, so, all right, very soon, that's great. But what can I do like today? So let's say I go get like an Alienware gaming computer and I get a tethered headset, and then I go and I, download vSpatial's app. What could I do like today if I wanted to? If I don't care about the money, the equipment, I get it.
Okay.
What do I do?
Today you can have a really powerful experience with vSpatial. So you would just download our app from the Oculus or the Steam store, and you'd be able to meet with up to 4 of your coworkers. You'd be able to bring in any of the applications that are open on your PC and interact with them and type and use them the way you would on your laptop, but in virtual reality. Share all of those applications with the people that are in your meetings, and have meetings with them. So it's a very powerful, full experience today in the stores, and it's available. It is just not available on the non-tethered headsets.
Right. But so I could, get all this stuff. I could open up like Microsoft Excel, and I could have it appear in the VR, and I could sit there with other people. Could I see the people? And I could say, hey, look over there at the sheet. Look at column C, row 6.
Yeah, you absolutely could. So you could have just a typical scenario. You could have an Excel spreadsheet open in your virtual environment, and a PowerPoint spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation. And let's say you have a browser open. and you're talking to 3 people, and you could share that browser and say, look at this website, look at this article I was reading, and you could point right to where you were reading and say, this is what I wanted, this is the point I wanted to make today in our meeting, and what do you guys think about this? And then you could say, why does that matter? And then you could share at the same time. You don't have to stop sharing your browser. You could share your spreadsheet at that point. And you could say, and here's the numbers, and this is why that matters. And you could, and meanwhile, by the way, they could be doing the same thing. They could be sharing things with you and say, oh, well, I saw this article today. What do you think about this? And they share, and it comes into your view, all at the same time. And then there's a really cool thing that you can do that, we call it focus mode. You can take one document, and you can, if it's really important, say it's a map or, a really important document that you're working on with your team, you can walk right up to that and blow it up as if it's the size of your entire wall in your office. And it's as if you and in this scenario, your 2 other coworkers are standing shoulder to shoulder looking at this wall-sized map or whatever. And you can point out, say, good locations or things like that.
Right.
And so it's a really powerful, some of that's even better than what you could do in real life, right? Because it's more flexible.
Okay, that's very cool. Are you controlling the apps? Let's say you're sitting at your computer. Are you controlling the apps with your keyboard, or are you controlling them in the VR space with gestures and touch and all that stuff?
Both. So you can right now, if you're working on, say, a spreadsheet or a Word document, you can you're going to have it in your virtual reality environment in front of you, but you can type using your keyboard, and then you can also in the virtual reality environment, you can, like you said, use hand gestures to move that document to the side. You want to look at another one, you move that one to the side, and another one comes up. You can pick it up and put it up above you in a little space we call the visor, where you can just save it for later, because you don't quite want to close it, but you don't want it right in front of you. And so the answer is both. You're interacting with that document or that application in virtual reality, but you can use your hands to do that, or you can use the traditional of a keyboard.
Yeah, that seems like you guys would need the help from all these software providers to create a VR version of their software that's compatible with what you guys do. Otherwise, you guys would have to do it. So how do you resolve that issue, or is that not an issue?
It's not an issue, but I think you allude to an interesting point, which is something I'm excited about, and not necessarily something we're working on, but I'm excited for a day to have a version of Excel that is made for virtual reality.
Right,
think about
exactly.
Like a three-dimensional version of Excel, where we put some numbers in, we make a bar chart, but then we can walk into the bar and see what made the numbers that ended up why the bar was lower than the other one next to it. So, there's really some really cool things that you could do with 3 dimensions that, to my knowledge, haven't been done yet, but are going to make that spatial experience that much more compelling over today's experiences.
Do you think it's going to be best if you create those versions, or if the companies themselves, like if Microsoft does it? Who do you think is going to be the one that makes this stuff, this bridge?
Well, that's a great question. One of the hardest things for a startup, is to stay focused on what you do and try. You have to choose what you do, and maybe sometimes even more importantly, what you don't do, because you can't do it all. It would be best if we could come up with that, obviously. But as to who's going to do it, your guess is as good as mine. I would guess it'll be someone who's new and someone who's innovative and is thinking of things from a different perspective than the traditional giants. That'd be my guess.
Okay. Well, it was really cool. So what's ahead for you guys for the next year? What projects are coming, or what changes?
We're working on some very exciting things. A lot of them are things that are just going to make our experience smoother and more delightful for our users, and they're very exciting. But they're things like how you log in and how you interact with your data. And so those are exciting. And we're also working on some really, really exciting things and talking to some really, really exciting people. But I just have to kind of say to be continued on that one. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. I think for us and for the industry as a whole, what's really exciting is the advancements in the headsets. We with the non-tethered headsets, the standalone headsets with the 6 degrees of freedom and the improved field of view and the improved resolution in the display. Also really exciting is Magic Leap was, just released a developer edition, Magic Leap 1, and we're expecting something from HoloLens, and there's all kinds of rumors about an Apple HMD at some point, I think in the next couple of years. So that's what's really exciting coming up.
Okay. Well, very good. So, I know you mentioned it a couple of times. So, best way for people to learn more about this is to actually use it, I'm sure. So,
absolutely,
a quick shopping list is a computer that's like a gaming computer, desktop. What kind of headsets?
The Oculus Rift, the Windows MR headset, and the Vive. And then just if you can't do that, I'd say hang tight with us for a few months, and we're working hard to be available on the much more affordable standalone headsets.
Okay, and then the app's on Steam and on what other store?
Steam and Oculus, and it's called vSpatial.
vSpatial, okay. And then what's the best way for folks to get in contact if they want to collaborate or ask questions or who knows what else? How do they get in touch?
Sure. I'm always happy to speak directly to anyone who is interested in talking about our company or working together. My email is jsallaway, SALLAWAY @vSpatial.com. And then, of course, we have the website that you mentioned, vSpatial.com. Twitter is @vSpatialVR. And if you go to any of those channels, you'll find plenty about us, and we'll be able to get in contact.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, John, this is great, and looking forward to it and trying it out. And thanks for coming on the podcast.
Very nice to be with you, Richard. You have a good day.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.